Welcome into the Fantasy Guides podcast. My name is Andrew Teuscher, and I am joined today by former college football player and current college football sicko, Jesse Preston, as well as Fantasy Guides contributor, Jacob Rhodes. We're going to get right into this one because Jacob had a great idea for a podcast because we're always trying to figure out what to do next. And I loved it because we're in the off season. We got to talk a little bit about Dynasty. So Jacob had a great idea. Let's talk about some guys who 2024 is a make or break season. In essence, if they do not do well this year, if they break, if they have a terrible season, you're going to see them plummet through the floor. They're just going to be a guy. Like they're not, maybe you'll put them in a lineup at some point in their fantasy lives again, but probably not going to be anything crazy. Or if they make it, man, they're ready to shoot off to the moon or ascend into another couple tiers ahead of their dynasty value, and thus make or break season. Jacob, did I describe that well enough for your standards?
I think so. I like it. I'm excited to get into it. There's a lot of players that are teetering and need to come into this season and be good. And it's good to look at them for redraft too. It's guys that we're expecting a lot out of in redraft, but their dynasty value might be higher now than it'll ever be again. So we'll talk about them.
For redraft value, it's kind of like sleepers, or values, guys who we think were not as good and people are questionable on. Jesse, you ready to give some solid opinions?
Yeah, for sure. I love this list that Jacob came up with. I think it's a great topic for today. And I want to dive into just, what if they do break out? Is this a buy situation, right? In Dynasty, because we're looking at them that they are about to break out. Or if you don't think they are, I think that's another good thing to know. So yeah, I'm just going to kind of look at it through a Dynasty lens and through whether I think, is this a make? Like, are they going to make it or are they going to break? We'll see.
I love it. And we're going to make it to this next player, or the first player, really. And we're going to go by positions. We're going to go QBs, RBs, wide receivers, tight ends, just to make it succinct and easy to mark on the little YouTube list of which guys we're talking about. And we'll start with one dude who's had a up and down couple of years in a lot of ways that I'm not even going to dive into. Deshaun Watson, make or break season. Jacob, why did you have him on your list of about 15 guys as having this being a make or break season?
This one's tough because it's close to home, but it's entering year 3 for the Browns. We've had 2 years of only 6 games, the first one for suspension, the second one for injuries. So, a couple of different things going on there. He's been quarterback 35 in both years. So consistently bad. But 5 top 10 weeks in those 12 games. So he's shown that he can be good for fantasy. We know what he's done in the past. He had 3 straight seasons as a QB5. But if he doesn't perform this year for the Browns, if the Browns miss the playoffs and he's starting all the games, or if he's injured again, they're going to have to look at other options, and they may do what Denver just did to Russ, and just eat what's left of his contract for the next couple of years and move on. It feels like he's on that year of like, it's time to be healthy. It's time to get it done. It's time to be good and be a good quarterback and, do what you were paid to do, which was a lot of money. So step up, Deshaun, please.
I mean, they only owe him a guaranteed $63 million for the next 3 seasons. Jesse, what are your thoughts on Mr. Watson?
I think he's about to make it. I think he has everything that he needs to be good this year. They have a talented roster that they've built around him. Assuming that he's healthy, he's the QB 25 on keep trade cut. There's no way that he finishes that low, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a situation. He's in a buy market right now, and I think he has to. I see this as a make. I'm definitely targeting Deshaun Watson, redraft and in Dynasty.
Yeah, I like that. He's definitely in a spot where he's a big time value. You can get him for cheap. Can't really sell him for anything because he's nowhere near what his peak value was. But at least coming into this season, there's room for some hope.
Yeah, the guy that owns him in our Dynasty, it's his 3rd quarterback. And it's like,
yeah,
I'm not so sure he's not going to finish right up there with his other quarterbacks. So I think he's great value. I think if you can go out and get him, you should get him. I think this is a make year.
Yeah. I think, I don't know if Steve's done a post on it yet, Andrew, but we were at least talking about it. The best offenses or the best offensive groups in football, and PFF's done a list on it as well. And the Browns were top 3 in both of those situations. It's such a good roster all around on both sides of the ball. And he's got plenty of weapons. There's no reason he shouldn't do well. He's just got to stay on the field.
think top three is a little wild in my opinion for that. And I don't know if it's just because it's the Cleveland Browns and those jerseys are just so gosh dang ugly. I'm so sorry. White face mask will make it better, but
It's
my
the color
goodness.
brown. It'll never be fixed.
Yeah, when your team's name is brown, it's gonna be a rough one. Deshaun Watson, make or break, man. You got to do something, and this guy's got to do something as well. And not what he's always been doing. Daniel Jones, the hurt man himself, constantly, I just think, in a fetal position. Jacob, why do you think Daniel Jones is in a make or break season in 2024?
I think my mic might have cut out. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Did some weird stuff on my end. Technical problems, always fun. Daniel Jones.
It's always perfect. We did not just struggle for 30 minutes before this trying to fix our audio. Don't you worry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Perfect. Coming into Daniel Jones, we have some issues going on in the background. Another guy that's had a bunch of issues going on, but different reasons. He's getting more chances than what he should have probably already had at this point, but he's going to get another year of starting. And his weapons, he probably is the best wide receiver one he's ever had in Malik Neighbors. But this is kind of it for him. The Giants have a potential out in his contract, even though he did just get a contract last offseason. There is a potential out this next offseason. So if they want to eat some cap and get rid of him and move on, they can do that next year. I don't know what he's going to do or if we have any faith in Daniel Jones coming into this year, but he's got to do something or they're going to move on from him.
Yeah, this one is a break for me. I do not believe in Daniel Jones as a starting quarterback. I've already put it out into the ether several times in our group chat that they're going to have Quinn Ewers or Shedeur Sanders playing quarterback for them next year. Maybe the kid down in Miami has been looking really good, Cam Ward. They're going to be moving on from him, I think, in the offseason. So I think, it is definitely make or break. Totally agree with you, but I am not buying in on Daniel Jones. I would steer clear of him. Steven made a good point that in redraft, he's essentially like free. He can just like stash him at the back, but I have no confidence in this player turning into anything. So that's where I'm at, Andrew.
Still has rushing upside at least, but
yeah.
I see him as probably being something kind of similar to what we saw to Jimmy Garoppolo with the Raiders last year, where it was like his QB play was just bad and slightly below average, but not atrocious. And then they just pulled him because they're like, well, we've seen enough of this. Let's get the other guy in here. And that's when they brought in Aiden O'Connell, got him playing a little bit more. And hey, guys, Drew Lock him in, is in that quarterback room. My fantasy team, please, they need it. My dynasty team desperately needs some Drew Lock. So never give up. As a Broncos fan, Jesse, can you give me the stamp of approval, Drew Lock, QB1 season?
I don't think so, buddy. But I will say the only other thing about Daniel Jones, I think I did read that somehow the way that his contract is structured, the dead cap hit, if they were to just cut ties with him, would be a lot lower than some of these other situations. So they structured it in a way, because I know Casey was like, they just signed him. This is their guy. And I was like, I don't know, dude. I don't think he's any good. So that team, they're in trouble. That does not look. It looks the opposite of that Cleveland Brown team. It looks like there's no weapons around him, so it's just going to be up to him. And I don't think he's the guy. So,
yeah. But speaking on that contract, they owe him They'll go $22 million to the cap if they cut him going into 2025. So if you draft the first round rookie QB, pay him $10 million, pay Daniel Jones $22 million. That's just a normal quarterback contract right there. And so, like you said, that they really aren't going to be hurting that much if they cut Daniel Jones after this season. So dynasty, I don't think I'm buying into Mr. Dimes. He will always have a career playing off-brand Eli Manning, though.
And it was something. It was only like, it's like 11 million dead cap though. So, or something like that is when I had read it. So, so it's also the how it's hitting the cap and is all a little different.
Yeah, I will never come. NFL contract is like a foreign language. It's like hieroglyphics. You just don't understand it, and you just wait for Shefty to send a clarifying tweet is all I'm hoping for. Well, one guy who is on a rookie contract, who Jacob is calling out for being having a make or break season, and I'm really torn on whether this is going to be a make or a break. I'm interested to see what you guys say. Will Levis. I hate your face, Will Levis, but I think you could be okay at football. Jacob, why is this make or break for him?
So I think if he was a first-round pick, it wouldn't quite be his make-or-break season, but he slid into that second round, so it's a little bit different with the way his contract's kind of structured. But man, is this team loaded with offensive weapons for him? If he can't succeed with the talent that is around him, this season. I don't think the Titans are going to be able to bank on him moving forward, and it might be time to find a different quarterback.
This just isn't a guy that I've ever really believed in from the time we were evaluating him, and there were people talking about him being like a top 5 NFL draft pick, and I just didn't see it in college. I could understand the talent that people were looking at, the flashes of brilliance that they would see. It just did not. It just never looked like he was going to be the guy to me. So, his ADP did spike a little bit when he came in and had those crazy games. It had a couple crazy games in there, and then it kind of floored back out. I agree. I do agree with Andrew though that if it's gonna be a make season, or with Jacob, I should say, like he's got the weapons. Like they have surrounded him with a ton of talent. I'm very in the mid on this one, Andrew. Where are you at with Andrew Levis? I'm not gonna personally go spend any of my dynasty capital to get him. But where are you at?
This hits home. This is a guy I have written a lot about not liking. Go to any comment section where there's a post on Will Levis, and I said something stupid about him drinking mayo or eating a banana with the peel on it. All right, so really not a fan of the guy, but dude, his arm is legitimate, and he's got wheels. He can move, and he's a tough son of a gun, and that rallies the troops. And I really like what Brian Callahan and his dad Bill are doing down there in Tennessee. And it never works to stack an offense through buying in free agency, but I kind of like the offense they've assembled through free agency, and their offensive line is better. And I think I'm going to like the run game. There is a real shot that he's not going to be he's not going to project into like top 5 fantasy QB. Like that'll never happen, but he could just be that Geno Smith, Tua kind of guy who just runs the offense, has a plus throw here and there. I'm buying low in Dynasty. I'll just put it that way. I am a coin flip on if this works. And if you would have asked me in February, does Will Levis make it? I would have said 10% chance. Now with Callahan and what they've done there, I'm a coin flip away from slipping on his banana peel and falling into his arms again. I don't know what to do here.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just tough for me. There are guys behind him that I would just rather have. Deshaun Watson being one of them, right? We just got done talking about Deshaun Watson, is a cheaper quarterback in dynasty value than Will Levis. But I don't know, it's also, I was never a big Jordan Love guy, and you kind of see that over time you give a guy, you surround him with weapons, put him in a good system. Do we feel like Tennessee has the coaching staff to develop this kid? I don't really know, right? I think there are some question marks there. So we'll see. I like I said, very mid. I don't think I could say, I don't know if he's going to be like a bust this year. I don't know if I could go that far because the weapons are so good and he is talented. He's not my flavor of the week by any means.
Yeah. Jesse, as you know, I've accidentally ended up with Ridley and Hopkins in my dynasty league now. So I am quietly rooting for Will Levis, but
there you go.
I tried to trade for him. I just tried to trade for him, but the price is just too dang high. Ray and oh gosh,
the all 22 boys.
The all 22 boys. They have a high price on this man, and I don't know why, because I don't think his PFF grade is that high. But shout out to them. All right, moving out of the quarterback position, I really loved those make or breaks. Those are dudes who really could shoot into, I think, a new stratosphere or completely be out of fantasy lineups for a long time. Now we're going to move into running backs, and I think this is just a very naturally make or breaky position. Like this is why I never want running backs being the bread and butter of my dynasty team, as these guys terrify me. For instance, Javonte Williams. Jacob, tell me about Javonte Williams, a guy who's actually passed hands between me and Jesse very recently.
Yeah. It's a guy that Steve actually likes a lot too this year, so I think he's definitely in the make category, but he's entering the last year of his contract, so it's a contract year running back. He's looking for a second contract following this year, but he's had a hard time staying on the field, and there's 2 young guys sitting behind him, and McLaughlin and Estime, that I know a lot of people don't believe in, but I always will. Different story.
Go Irish.
But yeah, if he can have a healthy, productive season this year and show the talent that we've seen before in spurts, I think he can get that second contract. Maybe not with Denver, but somewhere. If he can stay on the field though and be as productive as we know we've seen, I have every confidence in him that he can make it even in an offense that looks like it's going to be poor.
Yeah, I'm. This is a make for me. I'm all in on Javonte. I just traded for him in Dynasty. I think he's extremely cheap right now. I think that we all forgot that he was actually playing on a torn ACL and all sorts of other muscles inside of there, I believe, this past season. And a lot of guys, wouldn't come back till halfway through the year, and he was there right at the beginning of camp, competing for a starting spot. So he's going to be healthier this year, right? And yeah, Steven did an article on just how often Sean Payton targets running backs in his offensive schemes. That's great. We want a guy catching the ball out of the backfield. Bo Nix, we know, will check down the ball. He did a lot of it at Oregon. So yeah, I see a perfect storm coming together for Javonte to really make it this year.
Yeah, Jesse pried him away from me. I traded for Javonte. I paid a pretty penny for Javonte. One to where Jacob, whenever I made the trade, was like, "What are you doing? This was stupid." And I just thought I was banking on him gaining value. I really thought he might do it. And then Jesse offered me something that was just really good because my team's rebuilding and his is ready to compete now. So I couldn't say no to it. I just kind of had to get my value where I could. But Javonte is just a target hog and an offense that's going to check the ball down to a running back. And guys, a year ago, November of 20, that's not even far back enough. Let me go even further back all time. He was the RB2 in March of 2022, the RB2 on Keep Trade Cut, the second most valuable running back on Keep Trade Cut. How the mighty have fallen. Now he's all the way down here at RB31. So yeah, I just think he could easily bounce back up to it. We've learned after a running back gets hurt, give another season to come back. But yeah, definitely make or break in every essence of the word, I think, for Javonte. He could easily bounce back to being top 10. Moving on to another guy who he does not have the ceiling he used to. But Jacob, I left him on here because I want to talk about him.
Yeah.
Love this guy, J.K. Dobbins. We talked about taking him off. I wanted to keep him on. Talk to us about J.K. Dobbins.
This is another win now type running back situation. It's been an injury-filled career for J.K. Dobbins. Unfortunately, he's played 9 games the past 3 seasons combined, and he's coming off an Achilles tear now. But opportunity is going to be available in a very, very run-heavy offense that's being projected. And the Chargers, it should be a good offense. The team should be good. So the running back one on that team should be good. But we're not quite sure if that'll be Dobbins. I know Gus Edwards is dealing with some stuff right now in camp, I believe, injury-wise. So if that's a void that Dobbins can jump into, if he can get the bulk of the carries in LA, he's going to be very good for fantasy. But we know what it is with him. He's got to stay on the field.
Jesse, you're a Dobbins investor. Is he on your team this year? You have the entire Chargers backfield.
Yeah.
Yeah, I decided to just go all in on that one. I do think Harbaugh is going to run the football. I don't know which one of those guys is going to be the man, but that's why best ball is great. It's just I believe in the lineman that they brought in and his offensive philosophy of being a power team. That one of those guys is going to make it this year. J.K. Dobbins, it's funny because we did debate back and forth on the chat before this. This isn't really make or break for him. It's like very last chance of all time. He's on his last legs. I think it's very different.
Yeah.
You talk about investing in J.K. Dobbins. He was a throw-in. I don't even know.
Yeah.
Is he worth 1,000 points or something?
He's already broken,
Yeah.
so he can only make it. But
yeah, so it cost nothing. He was a throw-in. The
name value though, he still has some name value.
Well, and the other 2 running backs I think are more expensive than he was. So it doesn't cost you anything in Dynasty. And the thing that I will have a hard time letting go of is just how dynamic he was at Ohio State.
He was so good.
Yeah, watching him in college. So it's like, yeah, man, just get healthy. If he's healthy, he could be the guy. So I think it's worth an investment. You say investment, it's like it's free. It's almost free at this point. And yeah, definitely worth handcuffing if you got Gus Bus or if you got Vidal in your draft handcuff.
Yeah, I just looked up his contract because I remember it being a small contract. The guaranteed money is $50,000. This guy's guaranteed money is out of a teacher. All right, so they could easily cut this man, and it'd just be nothing. And then Kamani Vidal and Gus Edwards are there. But at the same time, like we see this happen where a guy comes back from injury and he has a big season. So I'm not writing off Mr. J.K. Dobbins. And of course, guys, he fits my type. He's like a prima donna wide receiver, but at the running back position. This guy doesn't believe in doctors. He thinks doctors are liars and wrong, and I eat that up all day. Well, one guy that Jacob wants to really eat up all day and will not let us. This is his stand. This is his dude, my guy of all my guys for Jacob is Mr. Kyren Williams. But why do you say this could be a break season potentially for him?
So he had some injuries he dealt with last year, and last year was that first year he kind of broke out onto the scene. But as most NFL teams do, and Kyren wasn't protected to that, they draft running backs, and they draft them frequently, and they draft them at any round, no matter how good the running back that's there was the previous season. So they drafted a good prospect with Blake Corum.
You guys remember Trey Sermon when the Niners drafted Trey Sermon?
Yeah. So, yeah, I love Kyren, but we know Corum's a good prospect, and if he's hurt and has times where he misses games, almost any running back can come in and do well on this Rams offense, but Corum especially, I think he could do really well and do well enough to where even when Kyren comes back, we see more of a timeshare in that offense, and I think that would really damage Kyren's value, because if you remember last year, Mr. Darrell Henderson came in off the streets and put up he played 4 weeks. 4 or 5 weeks, but 4 weeks where he actually started and had a bulk of the carries. 3 of those weeks he was a top 20 running back. And then after Kyren came back, they instantly sent him back to the streets. But if Darrell Henderson can do it, I think Blake Corum's good enough. So I'm worried a little bit if Kyren misses time and people see what Blake Corum can do with the bulk of the carries in an offense.
Yeah, Kyren's an interesting one because I like him as a player. He's a player that I like to come out of college. Mm-hmm. Is there any chance that he gets more value? Like, could he be more valuable than he is right now? Do you see him? Do you see him having as good of a season as he had last year? So what now the way that people are investing in him is that what we saw last year is not only sustainable, but that it could get even better. And that I just don't know how realistic that is. I mean, his value, I think, is as high as it could possibly be right now. So, if we're talking dynasty wise, that's a sell for me because I think you would get the most possible value that you could possibly get. I mean, he was really, really, really high. He was top 10 on some people's lists not very long ago. So, yeah, but it's not like I don't believe in the player. I just think, again, you're playing the stock market game, and his stock has to be about as high as it could possibly be right now. I'm not going to go try and get a guy when his stock has peaked, right? So, no, I think he'll be fine. I think Corum will get on the field. I think Corum will do well because I really believe in that player as well. But yeah, I just think his stock is as high as it's going to get.
Yeah, I see RB7 in 12 games, and I feel like if he puts together a full season, I think he's up there in that top 5 to 7 dynasty range for running backs.
He was the RB2 in points per game last year.
Yeah, and that's how people are looking at him and valuing him. And do you think that he's going to be the RB2 this next year? I mean, so that's the interesting part about it. So he's 9. He's the RB9 right now on Keep Trade Cut. I've seen him ranked a lot higher.
Yeah, that feels low. 9 feels low.
Yeah, but that's interesting to me because I think he was higher than that for a while. So I think he's come down a little bit for whatever reason. Maybe it was
Blake
Corum.
Yeah. I mean, it was just this. It's like, how high can he go? Can he go up? Like, his ceiling in points per game was that high. Yes, it could go up. But it's a fair question. Like,
it could go up. You think that he could finish this year as the RB1 or the RB2, Andrew?
Like on the season, or like his dynasty value goes up to RB1 or RB2?
Well, it would be both. I mean, if he's the RB2 again this year, then he's a top 5 dynasty asset, right?
There's a world where he gets all of the carries. There's a world where he gets all the carries he got last year, and we're like, yeah, Blake Corum's there to get 20%, 30% of the carries. That world does exist, where he's the next Christian McCaffrey.
It just, a lot of things went right. This is kind of my same thing with the CJ Stroud thing. People get excited because every single thing goes right. You got to be careful with that because there generally there's some market correction there because that is just you're not that fortunate as a football player to have everything go right every single year. So
Yeah. Kyren sounds like James Robinson to you. That's kind of how James Robinson's career was. It was a spark of lightning. Everything hit right all at once. And then it just,
I don't think bust. Like I'm not like
yeah,
I'm not like
Yeah.
break, like he's gonna fall completely
it was
off.
a late draft pick.
Yeah, no, I just think like it's really well, and honestly, it is funny that it's fallen down to, now he's in the 4,000s, because I think he was in like the 6,000s, right?
Yeah, it
He
was.
was like RB5 or something like that after the season.
Mhm.
So that's when so maybe we already missed our sell window. But yeah, I think that's hard to sustain.
I was listening to Damian Harris on the Athletic Football Podcast give a really cool perspective. For FYI, Damian Harris, for those who that name rings a bell, running back, long time for the Patriots, then briefly for the Bills, and retired recently. He was saying something along the lines of he just sees the running back position kind of like what the Rams are doing, where we're going to run the ball a crap ton. And it's not like we have a passing down back and a one and first and second down back. We just have two backs that have the same skill sets, because that's the skill set we want. And they're going to run those dudes a lot. So I kind of see that happening here with Corum and Kyren, where there is a world where it's 50-50. It's a world where it's 70-30 Kyren, and there's a world where Corum takes the lead. Yeah, there's a lot to go on here. And a guy who is definitely in a backfield split himself, Mr. Najee Harris, a dude that us at Fantasy Guides, I think, are kind of leaning into. And there's some truthers out there right now. Jacob, I need you to explain, though, make or break for Najee Harris, the first round pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, Jesse brought this name up, and for some reason, all the running back contracts that have been floating around and just contracts in general, for some reason, I thought Najee had gotten his, but actually, his 5th-year option was declined. He does not have a contract extension with the Steelers, and he probably won't see one unless he's just absolutely dominant and kind of returns to that rookie year. But that rookie year was led heavily by receptions for his production. He's someone that he's not getting the receptions anymore. The carries are there, but with them not putting any stake into him long term, I don't have any real confidence for him moving forward after this season.
And another guy that we need to talk about this season that it's big for him. This guy kind of came out of nowhere. If you would have checked last year, he was an absolute nobody. You probably picked him up off of your dynasty waiver wire, which is a wasteland. But Zamir White, Jacob, we had him marked down as a make or break season. Tell us more about this third-year running back for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, he had a lot of success last year when he was getting a lot of volume, and I think there's a chance he does get a lot of volume this year. From what they've reported out of camp so far, Madison is what we've already seen him to be, which is, a jag. He's just a guy. I'm not worried about him. I like Zamir White, but he does have that 4th-round draft capital. So I think if he comes into this year and he's not very efficient, not very productive, they don't really like what he see. He's someone they might move off of rather quick. There's not a lot of love for 4th-round running backs. So I just don't feel like he has a lot of room for errors this season. He's kind of heading into with some caution.
Yeah, when I look at the guys around him, I'd rather have all the guys around him than Zamir White when you look at keep trade cut. So, we just talked about Najee Harris. I like Najee Harris more than him, and he's behind him. Other players behind him, there's a lot of aging running backs, obviously, right? We just talked about Javonte Williams. I'd rather have Javonte Williams. I don't know what to make. It is totally, I can't agree more. This is make or break. I just don't know how much I believe in the Las Vegas Raiders being a good football team and being able to put up points, being able to move the ball down the field, being able to rely on Zeus to be their, RB1, and he's just going to pound the rock down there. I think Jacobs actually hid a lot of that team's shortcomings, and we could see them selecting all those guys I just talked about with the Giants. Quinn Ewers, Shadur Sanders, Cam
Carson
Ward.
Beck.
You heard it here first. Carson Beck, yeah, I've seen Carson Beck linked to some things. Carson Beck is the most Matt Stafford, not that exciting of a
that
prospect that I've seen in a long time that will probably come in and do just fine in the NFL, but there's no rushing upside. But anyway, I don't want to get too far off topic. I don't really know what to make of Zamir White. He's a guy that I liked. His value has skyrocketed post draft, right? Everybody's like, oh, they didn't get anybody. He's the guy. He's the RB1. This is going to be Josh Jacobs 2.0. I don't know, man. I think Jacobs might have just been really, really good, and and hiding a lot of deficiencies within that team.
Yeah. So he's one of those handcuffs that usually handcuffs are like the starter will go down and you're like, oh yeah, I've got somebody, and they're usually not that great. But Zamir came in and had 17.5, 17.5, 15.6, and 16.1 fantasy points those last 4 weeks of the year.
That's
so
good.
it was solid production, but it was also with about 22 carries on average. So he was getting a lot of volume in that offense, along with a few receptions. And I don't trust this offense to be good enough to be able to give Zamir White that kind of rushing volume consistently.
Yeah, he's a volume back. And
Yeah.
that is really scary where you have to take him in redraft this year. If you're talking about just a redraft, will he pay off or not? That's exactly what you want to avoid. Again, the guy who's in his backfield this year, Alexander Madison, a guy who's going to be in a good-ish, maybe below average offense with some weapons around him, and you needed volume. That's what Alexander Madison was. And Zamir White is a volume-based running back. Avoid at all costs volume-based running back. Now, the little bit Zamir White has going for him is he hasn't played enough to where we're confident he's a Jag, but the numbers kind of say he's a Jag who just gets volume. So unless he takes a step up, thank you, Zamir White. It's make or break. I think we're breaking up, buddy. Sorry, Zamir. It's not me, it's you. Moving on out of the running back position, though, onto some wide receivers. And wide receivers hold value like almost as well as quarterbacks, because this first guy is going to absolutely prove that. He still has value, and he's done nothing through, 2 or 3 years at this point? Jacob, talk to us about Jameson Williams' make or break season.
Yep, 2 years, so heading into his third year. And there's a lot of guys on this list that are heading into that third year, so there's a little bit of a trend. But Jameson Williams, never better than the wide receiver 81. So
that's
no,
bad. That's not good.
Done anything. Yeah, first year was just mostly injured, but still nothing that we really saw last year. There were some sparks. He's going to have those big plays that just give you that hope and that promise that yes, that's the guy we got. And he has that draft capital you want to see, but it's time to put it together, because they don't have a clear number 2 wide receiver now. They do have a lot of other target getters, but he's in a spot now where I think it might be an offensive scheme thing. Jesse, I'm not sure what you think there, but I don't know if it's going to work for him, and I'm especially not confident it's going to work for him on the Lions.
Prior to his ACL injury, he was my favorite wide receiver in that draft class. I was trying to decide between him and Roman Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Garrett Wilson. I'm getting ahead of myself. Roman
You do
Wilson.
love some Roman Wilson.
I love Roman Wilson too. No, Garrett Wilson. I was never a big Drake London guy, so for me it was Garrett Wilson and Jameson Williams were my guys. And then he had that ACL, and yeah, he just hasn't arrived. Totally a make or break situation. Now is the time. How much more patient does he want us to be? I personally, I'll just list off some guys that I would rather have: Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Jacoby Myers, DeAndre Hopkins. These are all guys way after him on keep trade cut. So I'm not really interested in investing in him. But I love the player. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it is a scheme thing. I mean, they like giving him reverses, but they don't throw him the ball down the field. So I don't quite understand it. I haven't figured it out. I don't, maybe it's off the field stuff even. So it's borderline. This is it. This is his final chance to kind of prove that he has that ability. And I just haven't seen enough to want to invest in him.
Yeah, it feels like he should fit perfect in this offense when Amon-Ra and Sam Laporta are getting those mid-range targets, and he's the guy that can go deep, but they just don't do it. It's so strange.
Take a shot to the guy. I don't understand. Maybe his knee was pretty messed up, so maybe he's just finally getting healthy. I don't know, but yeah, give him a shot down the field. He's caught deep balls and then had him called back several times for some reason too. So I don't know. It's we'll see. I'm just not ready to invest in him at this point.
Yeah, for a fast guy, I don't think he's very jittery, and he's not big enough to really make contested catches. Jameson Williams, I need to clarify, as I've been a Jameson Williams stance, it's mostly a joke because it makes Steven mad. I'm not actually that in on Jameson Williams. I need that out there. One guy I am very out on. You can almost not talk me into this guy at all. Jahan Dotson is not the next one I have. Drake London. We'll get to Jahan Dotson, I guess, in a second. Drake London is a dude I am absolutely in on. Wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons, now catching footballs from Mr. Kirko Cousins. Jacob, make or break season, Drake London?
Oh boy, Jesse's going to be with me on this one, Andrew. So you're going to get tag teamed on.
Stop it! All right, let me get my boxing gloves. Hold on.
Wide receiver 31 rookie year, wide receiver 37 year 2. So
That's
year
fine.
3
That's
with
fine.
Cousins, an actual like good quarterback. Granted, he hasn't had that yet, but he's being drafted as the wide receiver 10. I think there is no room for error with this guy. If people draft him as the wide receiver 10 this year and he busts, if he finishes even as like wide receiver 15 to 20, I think he's going to be viewed completely different than what he's being looked at right now. I just don't think there's a lot of room for error with him where his ADP has already skyrocketed to. He's got to be good. Has to be.
I have nothing to say. He already gave the perfect response, Andrew. So I know you have a differing opinion on the guy and you think he's about to take off.
He's so good.
Based on what?
Wide
that's
receiver 10.
That's my thing is we looked at the guy, we looked at some metrics and got really excited about those metrics and just, and then the draft capital and just exploded him up the board. And no one has gotten return yet. Doesn't matter if you picked him up last year or the year or as a rookie or whatever you did, you have not gotten return on that particular player.
Mm-mm.
And I don't see wide receiver 10 happening this season. 31, 37. I think Andrew's right. I think he could be fine. He could do 15 through 20, wide receiver season. He could be better than DK Metcalf this year. But I don't 10? He's going to be better than Tyreek Hill or Olave or what? Well, I don't know. Olave.
Well, that's dynasty value because those guys are ancient.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just I can't do it right now. Still can't do it. Can't get behind it. If he finishes up there where he's being drafted, then I will eat my words. But I just never saw any separation ability. So it's gonna all be so touchdown dependent. And then he hasn't caught any touchdowns in the NFL yet. So I need him to prove it. Absolutely a make or break. I just don't see it at the value that he's at or what people see him as.
Yeah, Jesse, I don't remember the stat, but I'm pretty sure he led college football the year before he came out in contested catches.
Yeah. Oh, he's amazing at that.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So the separation thing's never been good for him. He's just always been able to overcome it. But talent's a little bit different in the NFL.
That was kind of my point. A couple of years ago when we were talking about him.
I think he's got Zach Robinson there, who's going to be an excellent and helping him get actually schemed up. And I think Kirko's willing to throw him a football even when he's not fully open, but he's still open because he's always open. And Drake London, guys, go out and watch yourself some film. He's a yak guy. He goes hard he is Travis Kelce after the catch. That was my comp. I am documented on one of our podcasts of saying Drake London, it plays like Travis Kelce, but more wide receiver-y. He is Travis Kelce after the catch. Drake London, my wide receiver 9 this year. It's not a make or break season because he's only going to make. Now, this next guy that I wanted to talk about earlier, this is the dude I want to hate on, Jahan Dotson. Jacob, Jahan Dotson, receiver for the Washington Commanders, make or break season. Tell me more.
For the record, this is a guy I'm not very in on. I think there's a lot of signs that Washington's kind of pointed to that don't really bode well for him, but it's another year 3 guy. He has never been better than the wide receiver 51, but his rookie year, he only played those 12 games. And we saw some real good strokes of brilliance from him that rookie year. We've seen it from him on the field in the NFL, but now he's entering year 3. There's a new quarterback in town. They drafted a rookie wide receiver. They drafted a rookie tight end. I don't think they're leaving him a lot of room for error, and it's someone they might be moving off of here soon.
Yeah, I've loved the player coming out. This is another guy I had ranked higher than a lot of other people, and it was great through those first however many games you talked about as a rookie. He looked like he was going to be the guy.
Caught a lot of touchdowns.
Yeah, early on, and he was kind of a red zone guy. I watched a game where I saw them, work him into the script, trying to get him the ball right away on screens and things like that. So I think they like him. I just think it's been a health thing. So, yeah, man, where's he going now? You got to scroll a while to find him on here. I don't think he's that expensive. And I do think that this offense is going to be better. So I don't know. I'm not completely off of him. I think he could make it this year.
I'm out. It is a rookie quarterback who is not known for being a prolific passer. Like, that's not his thing. Now, I'm not saying Jaden Daniels is a terrible passer. I don't know if he'll be an amazing one, but that's not his thing. His throwing. He's a mobile guy. He's definitely not going to be the top receiving option in his offense. He might end up being the third option by the end of the season. And yeah, he's never done anything efficiency-wise. Normally, when we look at these sleepers, I'll check their targets per route run, and their targets per route run will be higher than their target percentage because they weren't on the field enough or blah, 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 blah. Not the case. He has a 12% targets per route run. That's bad. He's on the field, played poorly. Next guy, Jerry Jeudy, a guy that Jacob is more into, and he's somehow got me over on his side. Tell me about Jerry Jeudy real quick, Jacob.
This is a guy where last year felt like his make or break year, but he's getting a fresh start, which is hilarious that he's getting a fresh start in Cleveland.
He's
but
back,
he is.
Baby.
He is. He's getting a new offense. He's getting a new quarterback, new system.
But he's staying orange.
But he is staying orange, yes. But this year, this is the year that's definitely make or break for Jerry Jeudy. I feel like he had that wide receiver 22 finish 2 years ago, 2022. But that was his best finish in his 4 years that he's been in the league. So we've seen strokes of brilliance from Jerry Jeudy. We know he is a massively talented prospect. Can he do it as the wide receiver 2 for Deshaun Watson, who we were also just talking about, that's coming into a make or break season? Time will tell. But I like the guy. I've always loved the talent. He got that first round receiver upside. He's just brilliant prospect. Footwork's amazing. Probably the 2 best route runners beside each other in the NFL with him and Cooper, but that's a different story.
That's a Browns fan talking.
I'm in on Jerry Jeudy, but he's cheap right now, right, Jesse? What's his dynasty value looking like?
Yeah, I went and picked him up. I am all over the wide receiver 60 right now in Dynasty for
that's crazy
2,700 points. Yeah, no, that was one. That is a buy low situation in my opinion. All the players surrounding him are like rookies that we know nothing about, or really, really old guys. And I think people also forget he's 25. He's not like he's still pretty young for a wide receiver. He's got some years left. So no, I'm all in, but this is, I will tell you guys, this is funny, being my third year on the podcast, because I think this is the third year that I've been going, I think this is the year for Jerry Jeudy. So it's like, fool me, fool me once, fool me twice. Now, if Casey was on the pod, he would make a great case for when he is on the field, he does produce. And so a lot of it has been because of injuries. So we'll see what happens here. I think a fresh start is what he needed, and I think he's going to be great. And I went out and picked him up in Dynasty.
Yeah, I was all in last year, and then last year Steve Smith called him a jag on live television, and it was downhill. And But fresh start now, so things are looking up.
Yeah, that was not a good look for him last year. Let's talk about more third-year wide receivers. Get back to that trend. We got Christian Watson out here for the Green Bay Packers wide receiver make or break season. Is his right leg the same size as his left leg? Is he going to stay healthy for once? Jacob, what are your thoughts on Christian Watson?
Yeah, apparently the guy just doesn't run properly, and that's what's causing his hamstring issues. It's such a strange story, but hopefully they got that figured out this offseason and he stays on the field, but he has got to take the alpha spot, that number 1 spot, away from Jaden Reed, or I think his dynasty value is going to take a serious hit. We've seen the injury concerns, but we've also seen him be just dominant on the field when he's on it, and he's getting volume, and he's running down the field, and he's doing what he does really well, and he's separating vertically and just running away from the defense. But I think he's in a good spot with Jordan Love and with a bunch of guys that I don't think are alphas on that wide receiver group, to where he can kind of separate himself from that group of guys and take over as the number 1 guy in this offense. But Andrew, I know you love him. What's he going to do?
I love this guy. But I like Jaden Reed too. So I'm really torn. Jesse, which one of my children should I love more, Jaden Reed or Christian Watson?
I think Jaden Reed does some things differently. They're kind of two different wide receivers, I guess. So that's a tough one. Wide receiver 38 on keep trade cut. That feels a little low, I think, for the potential that this guy has. My thing, looking at his picture there on YouTube, is, do you think he has a room in his house that is just green and yellow? He came from a green and yellow college team too, North Dakota State Bison. I never put that together. This is a situation where I loved her first. I watched him returning kicks for North Dakota State and went, God, this guy is unbelievable. He, with that speed that he had at the FCS level, he just looked like a man among boys, kind of running the ball. they'd give it to him on, and he played on an offense where they just handed off all the time. So he would just get these like play action passes, or they put him back on a kick return. I really like Christian Watson. I do think, it's been interesting to watch all the Instagram posts about his, this hamstring being a different length than the other one or whatever, like all the leg things like you talked about. So, but maybe they're getting it all figured out. And I do think that he's probably more, I think that it would be tough to choose between him and Reed. I think they actually complement each other really well. And I think Jordan Love is, again, he's starting, I'm starting to become a believer there. So I like this system. I like where he's at. I think I would invest in Christian Watson at 38. I think he could do better than that.
I think we're going to see either Jaden Reed or Christian Watson shoot to the moon, and we're going to be like, oh yeah, well, of course he was going to be the guy there. And there's going to be a huge value in this Packers offense. Another guy who just a very similar boat. He's an efficiency monster, incredible athlete. Just for some reason, it's not worked out for one way or another. For Pickens, it's been quarterback. And boy, do I like me a diva. So Jacob, should I be talking myself this much into George Pickens? He's high on my board for me.
Yeah, continuing the year 3 trend, but believe it or not, never better than the wide receiver 30, and he has missed 0 games. You can go fact check that if you want, but I was looking at it earlier, and he played 17 year 1 and 17 year 2. So
he's consistent. I like it.
Not better than wide receiver 30 when playing every single game is crazy, but his quarterback situation has been terrible. If he is going to have that breakout year, it has to be this year, and it should be this year with Russell Wilson coming into town and with Deontay Johnson leaving. He's the clear number 1 on the outside. I like Roman Wilson, but he's not the kind of receiver that Pickens is. So I just don't see anyone taking it away from him. And when he's catching the ball, it's something special. He's making crazy catches every week, but I think him and Russ can get it done. I'm a fan of Pickens. His value might be climbing a little bit more than I like, but it's not doing what Drake London's is doing, and he's been better so far. So, Jesse, with that, hating on Drake London and liking Pickens at the same time.
Well, I liked Pickens coming out way more than the pundits, which was interesting. He was also coming off of an injury, so you didn't have a lot of scouting, a lot of numerics on him or anything else. But I remember him going to Georgia and being their best wide receiver as an 18-year-old kid. So the guy has it. He's always been kind of a volatile prospect to me. I think that he could be like, pull like a Rashee Rice and be out of the league too. I worry a little bit about those things. When I look at keep trade cut, JSN, Jordan Addison, Brian Thomas Jr., Ladd McConkey, Xavier Worthy, Debo Samuel, Jaden Reed, all those guys are behind him. I like all those guys more. Yeah. So it's going to be really tough for me to invest in George Pickens at his current value. Roman Wilson, on the other hand, is relatively cheap, and they don't
get out of here.
They don't have that many receiving options. So
he's cheap for a reason.
If you're looking for value, though, I think you'd get more value out of that than for Pickens. But I've always really liked the player. I liked him more than anybody else coming out, and yeah, he could be the guy. Let's see.
I just think Mike Tomlin's going to save Arthur Smith from himself, and George Pickens is just the only guy there. I've got George Pickens as my wide receiver 24 right now in redraft, so I'm banking on a make here for Mr. George Pickens. And the last guy we're going to talk about, the only tight end we're going to talk about, because when we're saying make or break, he's kind of Kyle Pitts is the definition of make or break, but then also like I'm probably just going to talk myself into him next year, no matter what. So Jacob, tell us about Kyle Pitts, tight end for the Atlanta Falcons.
That has been him 3 straight years, is busting, but then everyone just being like, but it's like the talent, the draft capital, everything.
I'm going to do it again. I swear, I'm going to do it again.
Well, this year it's Kirk Cousins, and we'll see. He had that tight end 6 finish his rookie year, but he was actually tight end 12 in points per game. So the finish looked good, but the result wasn't great. There was a lot of duds in there. But tight end 33, tight end 13 the last 2 years, that's bad for tight ends. He gets Kirk now. I just think it's this year he has to be a top 5 tight end, or it's washed. Like it's done. We're not going to see it from Pitts. He doesn't have it. I just at some point we're going to have to accept like he can't produce on an NFL field for fantasy. And I think that's that.
If you owned him for any amount of time over the last few years, you hate the guy and you want nothing to do with it. So it's literally at this point, it's got to be people that haven't owned him yet
Yeah.
and are
He
going,
still has value.
I think he's still gonna, well, yeah. So that's why you move him though, with the value that he has never performed as the fifth guy off the board. So that's way too rich for my blood. I would rather have all these other tight ends. I don't know. He still gets a pass. It really is. It's based on me owning him and him just literally being tight end, being a dead spot for the entire season. Cause I took him in redraft and was just like, this sucks, and you're just scrambling like crazy to try and find somebody else the entire time. And, the entire reason that I am sticking to this, that my dynasty team is good right now. I've been a contender the first couple years of our dynasty league, is because I took Kyle Pitts in our startup at his insane value. I think he was my second pick. I think it went Jamar Chase and then Kyle Pitts as it came back to me in that particular startup. And then I promptly dealt him at that value for Saquon Barkley and other players. And that ended up being like a huge shift in our, as we were doing that startup. So I'm I'm never touching Kyle Pitts again. I made the right move by getting out of that while I could. It just seemed too rich for my blood to spend on a tight end. And yeah, it's proving to be that way thus far. But God, somebody in Atlanta has to be good, right? Like somebody has to start making plays. I like the offensive coordinator. Well, I think Bijan's got an RB1 type of season coming up here. I think he's going to be pushing Christian McCaffrey this year, in the coming years, as being the top running back in the league. So I do think they're going to funnel a lot through him. But Drake London, I think stock up, and I think Kyle Pitts stock up based on their quarterback situation now. Even if our boy Kirk Cousins goes down, they went ahead and took care of in the top 10 picks. They got their backup quarterback.
They got a great backup
who's really good. I really like him. So, I think that they gotta be better. Right. But at the value that they want for both those guys, I don't think quite that value, but
I'm
gotta be better.
Old enough to remember when last year there was a lot of time last year when Kyle Pitts was not the number one tight end on his team and Jonnu Smith was doing some work in the same offense that Kyle Pitts is on. So
I love that. Old enough to remember.
People try to forget that. Yeah, they're like,
no,
Kyle Pitts. No, Jonnu Smith.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm very, very nervous. Glad I'm not a part of that. I think Darnell Mooney is the value on that team. We've talked about that. We have talked about that. Jake sold me. I tried to go get him in Dynasty, and the guy was having nothing to do with it. I was like, God dang it. He just listened to the freaking podcast. I know he did. Yeah. And Nick is like, no, now I'm seeing that this guy is definitely worth more than that value. So
I'm in an abusive relationship with Kyle Pitts in the sense that I drafted him his rookie year whenever he first came out. And I have a recurring bet with a friend each year that Kyle Pitts is going to have more receiving yards than Travis Kelce because they were going two different directions on the age apex. So I'm all in on Kyle Pitts. Jesse, I'm the freak who drafted Kyle Pitts and won't give him up.
Cash out, man. Somebody go give him the hook. You got to get him out of this. You're going to just keep doing the same bet.
That team has won a championship, and it's involved me trading for TJ Hawkinson to play in his place while still holding Kyle Pitts.
Oh my God.
I won't give up. I will not give up on you, Kyle.
Oh man.
Anyway, that's me getting on Kyle Pitts rants. It's time for us to take us out. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, comment, share the feed, get it to some great information to some friends, and get this information in your head that you should be on Underdog, playing Underdog in Underdog drafts right now. Use promo code GUIDES, get yourself a deposit bonus, and more importantly, a free draft guide so that you can see me professing my love to Kyle Pitts in written form as well as verbal. So make sure you get out there. Again, like, share the page. If you want to follow the main page, it's at Fantasy Guides. Steve's constantly putting out content with support from us. You can follow Jesse at Debbie Rookie Watch to get some good college content. I'm sure that's about to ramp up. And Jacob at FG Rhodes FF, always sharing the good stuff that he's getting tagged in and sharing the page praise on there. But I'm going to take us out of here, boys. Say bye-bye to the friends at home.
Peace.
Later.